Welcome into Shaping Reality for September 2025. It's been a calm and peaceful month, Penny. Whatever are we going to talk about?
What reality were you in?
A different one. I've decided this one is too crazy for me. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight. We're going to be talking about the look-see that Penny shared earlier in the month, and also just
Yeah.
some other topics that we think are worth touching on. Penny, how are you doing?
I'm really doing well. I'm feeling very muscular because I've been stacking wood lately. And, that's when you have multiple cords of wood. And yeah, it's a lot of moving back and forth and picking up, So I'm feeling really good.
You're feeling all buff and fit.
Yeah, right. I know. I was thinking, well, I'm going to end up with some more muscles in my arms. And already some of my shirts are like too tight. It's like, oh, that's muscle. So
Yeah.
I'm liking that.
Do you heat a lot of your facility there with wood?
We have multiple forms of heat. We have electric heat. We have wood heat. I have a boiler floor heat. And we have a blower as well that blows around whatever heat is up at the ceiling. And so our main thing is the floor heat. When you have floor heat, you are comfortable at 68, 67 degrees. And for somebody who really likes warm, like I do, that's really important. And then the wood stove is really it makes some rooms really cozy. So you can go anywhere in the building, depending on where you want, what kind of temperature you want. So, and then the big blower blows heat all over the place if it gets too chilly or the wind is blowing. So, yeah. Multiple. We have 3 levels of electricity. We have commercial, full commercial, partial commercial, and emergency. So, yeah, it's a place that requires a lot of managing.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that.
It sounds like it. Lots of square footage.
Yeah. You have to be watching. You have to, we had one of our cats got into a room that we never go to. We closed the door, and a week later, I see one of the other cats sitting outside the door, and I'm thinking, why does she want to go in there? What's going on? I open the door, and there's the missing cat. And it was, it's like, oh, wow. So you have to make the rounds regularly to make sure no one.
And count the cats.
And count the cats. Yeah, that's my team. That is the team that keeps the mice and the chipmunks and the squirrels and the rats and the invasive birds and, all kinds of stuff. It's sort of at bay. So they're a pretty powerful team. Yeah. So how have things been?
They've been good for me. I realize there's a lot going on the planet, which kind of leads me into how I would like to address what's been happening in the last month.
Yeah.
And clearly they've ratcheted the eternal they.
Right.
They've just turned the volume up to almost a comical, ridiculous point, not to diminish the pain and suffering that some people are experiencing. But it's almost gotten to the point of a level of ridiculousness.
I know.
That has created in me what I almost call a fear fatigue. It's like, I'm just so over it. I'll wait for the sequel.
Okay.
And I know I had watched a video with you, and you had said that you had a conversation with Jay Snip.
Yeah.
Who had said he was just done with it. And
right.
I even saw Penny, a youngster, like a 30-something-year-old who earns her living on social media, say that she bought a dumb phone. So she can't, so she's no longer getting on social media repeatedly. She says it's been the best thing she's done for her life.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
So what I'm leading up to is, it seems as though they have pushed it to the point where people just are no longer willing to participate. The lies are so ridiculous. The psyops are so sad and pathetic. You know, it's so obvious.
Mhm.
And that leads me to thinking about things that you have said over the years about us just turning and no longer engaging and walking away.
Yep.
And that's what I see. I know that that's what's happening inside of me. And I think I see it in other people. And so, what I would like to do is kind of go down a track of talking about the power when you just completely withdraw your energy. You know, what happens then? And then what do we do with our energy? Because if we're no longer wasting our energy on these ridiculous fairy tales that we're being presented with in order for them to get a reaction, we've got a whole ton of energy that's pretty powerful.
And that's an understatement, actually. That is the power that some people are waiting to gather. And by the way, let me just say to people, I have a serious frog today because I was doing some neck exercises, and every so often my voice just shuts off. So I hope it doesn't do that. But it's that whole thing about just walking away. Remember when the walk away movement started and people were being told to walk away from the Democratic Party, I think is where it started. And then it became this whole flood of people that were just moving away from the drama. And then there was a resurgence. And now I see that same thing even bigger happening, that same walk away. I'm tired of this. I said to JC or to Jay Snip, it's like a soap opera, a stupid soap opera with people that make all the wrong decisions over and over and over. We are not that stupid. And if they think that we just need to be entertained and we won't change the channel, then they have seriously misjudged the American population and the population of the West. Everybody is tired of the drama, the lies. It is ridiculous. And people are starting to just, I think I'm going to focus elsewhere. And I started for a long time, actually, I've had the habit of put my phone in one place in the building because I can get a signal there. And if I'm not in earshot, well, I don't hear it. And, if I'm in the greenhouse or I'm in the basement or I am out stacking wood, I just can't hear that phone, sadly. So, yeah. So I think that whole thing, the split that we've talked about, that split is getting more and more dramatic. And it's the people who are tired, who see through all of the narrative, the stories, the lies. Those people are going to constitute one side of that split. The people who can't see past all of that made up drama, I'm not sure what's going to happen with them, but that's where we're splitting. And we probably have a couple years yet before that becomes so blatantly obvious. So, I just think we just keep moving in the direction we want to be going. Enjoy life, do what you love to do. I think we need to have some people literally say, like I was I'm working on the next look-see, actually, and I'm checking all these different figures and things, what's happening here, what's happening there, and the joblessness, people getting cut from jobs, that is spreading pretty dramatically. And this was a guy in England he's been working somewhere for 10 years. All of a sudden he gets called in and said, we don't need you anymore. And he's like, what? I have 2 children and a wife and a house and a car and, all that. And so I think the people that are not wanting to get caught up in the dramas anymore really need to think about, how do I want to live? Where do I want to live? Should I downsize my house? Do I really need a big house? If I didn't have such a big house, I'd be able to heat it and cool it for much less and clean it with much less time and energy. We would probably spend more time outdoors because it gets a little sticky sometimes in households when you have family. And so that whole thing is really a first step. Am I in the right place? Do I feel safe here? Is my house something I could afford if I lost my job? And then, maybe start growing some of your own food, downsize your car, pay off bills, or let them go, one or the other. If you can't pay them off, sometimes you just have to let those go. And when the companies come back, people freak out. Oh, my credit score. Why would you want to get on that credit debt grid again? That's the whole trap right there. Get off of that. Take yourself off. And when you don't pay that Visa or that MasterCard bill for a while, the company comes around and says, do you want to make a deal? And they will settle for 1/10 of what you owe. And nobody knows that unless they've been through it. And I've been through it. So I was stunned. I was like, what do you mean you want to make a deal? You mean I can pay less? And they were like, yeah. Could you pay anything? And I'm like, And I made a ridiculous offer and they took it. I said, I can pay $5 a month. That's all I have. It's all I can afford. And they said, well, take it. So, that was many, many years ago. I was at the bottom, and I learned a lot from that experience. And I'm glad I was young when that happened and I didn't have anything hardly to lose. But, when you start anticipating, okay, we need to live differently, that means being willing, being flexible to maybe move to a different location, get a different house, grow some of your food, learn some other skill that complements what you're already doing, and, learn to enjoy life a little differently. Learn to take care of your medical needs, because 99% of what goes wrong in the body can be fixed naturally. I'll say maybe 95%. There's always, accidents and things like that. But yeah.
I have two comments I'd like to make on that.
Okay.
The first is that I stopped playing after 2008, and
okay,
when they masterminded the whole, what I call the biggest theft of the American people in this country, I was one of them, and I went through that whole thing. I mean, zero is not the bottom.
No,
way past zero.
Yeah, and I was past zero.
Yeah, and when I realized that they had orchestrated that, they paid all themselves billions of dollars, and they completely raped the American population, I was done. Yep. So, and I think that when you get to the point where you say, I'm done, everything changes.
That's right.
The second thing I would like to talk about, and I've been thinking about this recently, with the advent of AI, is small businesses are important to this country. And as a small business owner, I feel like we need to make choices that go beyond just ourselves. And one of those choices is, do you want to employ humans, or do you want to integrate AI into your business? And I find myself being completely turned off to companies that are utilizing AI.
Yeah.
I want a human.
I know.
I want to interact with a human. I want them to welcome me in and thanks for stopping by. And I want them to hand me cash for the cash I paid them. They're my change. So my point is that simply because corporations are completely ruining life here in the US, it doesn't mean that we, the population, have to play along.
That's right. We don't. And I think people using AI, like some of the reports about AI, indicate that it's probably going to do something similar to a .com crash, because people are not really getting their money's worth out of it. It's not the companies that have adopted AI. They have discovered that people are using the AI to do their work, and so then they're goofing around, and they don't pay attention to the details, and the work is what they call that. I forget. There was a name for it, like AI slop or something like that. And it makes all kinds of work for other people who are not using that AI, and the people using the AI aren't taking care of all the details. And so it's like it makes a problem for others. And the companies that are using AI are saying, well, yeah, okay. But so far it hasn't really boosted the bottom line. The companies that have been able to fire people, they've seen some change. But then, that others have not seen any change at all. So I think we need a reckoning, a settling out of, is this really useful? How is it useful? Why is it useful? And so on. So yeah, AI is, and I hear constantly that people say, it's going to take over. It's going to do this. It's going to do that. AI is not sentient. There's a quality to humans that AI doesn't have and is never going to have, ever. It can be devious. AI can be devious, yes. But that doesn't mean it feels or is sentient. And always the picture that I get is that people create the AI and then they stand back and say, okay, go for it, Mr. Robot or Mrs. Robot. And they act like they don't need to be in oversight anymore. It's the AI making all the decisions. I'm like, what about us? Where is our management, supervisory capacity when it comes to AI? They aren't the only ones making the decision. You know how I say you're not the only ones creating? Some people say, but so these people are giving me a hard time. Yeah, because they're creating what they want in life. And you have to create in such a way that sort of merges or goes around or, results in something real that you want to see. But to abdicate, throw up your hands and say, I can, it's AI is doing it. It's doing it all. That isn't the way that AI needs to be managed. So we have a lot of lessons around AI that are coming. And I think maybe the first one is probably going to be disappointment. So we'll see. So AI is really wonderful when used correctly. When you use AI to create some sort of natural formula that heals something that has been a real problem, that's a wonderful result. When you use it to, do other things that are really destructive, that's just plain stupidity.
Well, I don't think that we have the maturity as a collective yet.
Yeah, that's where we don't.
Yeah.
The people who are leading don't seem to exhibit that maturity.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, especially in what do we call the baby boomer generation?
The boomers.
A lot of people in the boomer generation have a lot of experience and a lot of wisdom. And the young ones need to see our response to that, to the narrative the stories being put out there, so that they get half an idea of, oh, I didn't think about that. I didn't look behind that curtain. Oh, I didn't hear that word that puts a twist on whatever, that leader was saying. So yeah, we need to keep speaking up and sharing that wisdom and that, wait a minute, what are you doing? What are you pulling? Why do you think that's going to have a good outcome? Those are the kinds of questions we need to be asking. So,
okay, so we can ask those questions, but for me, and tell me where I'm wrong, if I'm wrong, if you feel I'm wrong. For me, the issue on this planet right now is that we have a force, a collective, a group from off the planet that want this planet.
True.
They don't want the most of us on this planet because we're messy and in the way. And they have infiltrated governments around the world that are then implementing programs that are not good for humanity, the billions of us. And in my mind, until we get that out in the open and get them off this planet, speaking up doesn't do any good. Our leaders are not listening. They have no desire to listen to us. The whole thing's a game. And I go back to that analogy. It's like we're kids in a car, a speeding car with a drunk mother at the wheel.
Yeah.
We are being drugged through all this stuff that has nothing to do with us.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know what speaking up is going to do. The only thing that I can think of is completely withdrawing my energy from the system.
Right. Yeah, everything needs that.
This own little bubble, and I figure I'll meet other people in their little bubbles.
Okay.
So when a planet is in the situation that we're in, where we're literally battling out for a takeover, right. Has this happened before like this? If so, what did they do? It's like I feel like we need a game plan.
We do. We actually have one, but it's not well known because the beings, the people that are here trying to help avoid the takeover are saying, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. You have to stand up. You have to take some action. And what is the action? I've said this before. It's exactly what you just said. Walk away. Turn your attention, let go of it, sit down, take a week and go on vacation in your living room. Don't spend a single dime. Don't pay a bill. Don't go grocery shopping. Don't go anywhere. And watch how fast the powers that think they want to be collapse. They're at a point where they cannot hold up. If we had done that when I first started talking about it like 10 years ago, it wouldn't have had much of an impact because that group, that deep state group that is backed by some aliens that really want control, they were too strong and they were too cocky and they were just, doing their thing and spreading their crap everywhere. So now that is not the case. They are right on the edge of collapsing. And if we just all took our attention away and said, no, we're not playing that game anymore. We're not going to go to work at those kind of jobs anymore. Yeah, the world would shut down for a day, but the deep state would be done for, period. And so the resilience of having some food, some water, and having a few people who will say, I'll keep the electric system going. I'll keep the water going, pumping. I'll keep the internet going. But minimum. That would allow a huge statement on the part of
Don't
the.
you think that it's eventually going to come to that? I mean,
I do.
let's look at what's going on right now.
Yeah.
So they can't get away with diddly squat anymore
I can't.
because these citizen journalists are analyzing videos, are analyzing audio, are, analyzing the activity after an incident. They're not getting away with it anymore. Everybody's on it like white on rice.
That's right.
And then the rest of us are just like, I'm sorry if someone was injured or, moved on to the next adventure. I'm sorry about that. But on a soul level, they decided to play at that level.
That is true.
And here's the bottom line for me. And if you are watching and you feel the same way too, put it in the chat, because I'm really curious to see where we're all at. I am so bored with the whole thing. I feel like I'm watching a bunch of screaming toddlers and I just want to do something interesting with humanity. And when I think about the amount of creative energy that will be freed up once more, no longer in this ridiculous little pantomime, it's like a Mexican soap opera. And I have nothing against Mexico. I love Mexico. I'm going to Mexico in a few months. I love it there. Their soap operas are ridiculous beyond.
I know.
And that's exactly what we're experiencing. I'm bored with it. It's like, get me off this planet. I want something interesting. I want to see humanity creating. I want them expanding. I want to be surprised and delighted with what is created. I want to be blown away with the new art, with the new architecture, with the new systems. I want that kind of excitement, not this ridiculousness.
No, I agree. And when I look at the stated reason, it's really, it is ridiculous. Okay, we're fighting in Ukraine. We're really fighting Russia because somebody in either Washington or Israel or somewhere wants all of those natural resources. What do they say? Russia's sitting on 71 or 75 or 78 trillion dollars in natural resources. And they want to get their hands on those. And then the whole thing in the Middle East, they want that oil. They want control of that oil. And now Venezuela, same thing. Where does that ridiculousness stop? It could have stopped a long time ago if we hadn't wasted all of our money creating the situation that we're in right now, and instead would have done some research into science and what is possible in science. We're so close. We're so close to being able to create, using plasma, materials from scratch. We have directed energy weapons. Why did we bother with that? Well, maybe they'll keep us safe down the road. But what about using that same technology, which is the ability to get fields to cohere, to coalesce, to move in particular patterns? And when you do that, you create a material. Some sort of material comes out of it. There's a whole level of materials that would expand the periodic chart to double its size if we would only stop and do the research and the experimentation. We could take all of those, what do you call those, uranium rods, spent rods, I think they call it, from various nuclear plants, treat those with frequencies and reuse them for some other kind of energy, a lower, less dangerous form of energy. But we're not even trying. We're repeating the same dangerous kinds of things that we've done in the past. And then on the other spectrum, we have 8 billion people going to survive on green energy. That's not happening. That green energy it's a nice idea, but it isn't stable. It isn't reliable. It is subject to the weather. And what we say here in Michigan is just, like wait 5 minutes and the weather changes. It's that way for a lot of places. So why are we wasting time with green energy when there are other forms of renewable, sustainable energy that would power whole cities and whole regions without killing birds, which is what those big arrays, those big, well, that too. But when birds fly over those solar panels and they hit a spot where those solar panels are focusing light, the birds lose their way, or they superheat in that few minutes, and boom, they drop. And then, of course, if they hit windmills, we won't even go there. So we have.
That just takes me back to my earlier point, is the reason we're not pursuing, let's call it free energy or plasma energy,
right,
is because they don't want humanity to, the people that are controlling the planet, they're running the planet, don't want humanity to succeed.
I know. And so they already have that energy. That's the hard part.
If they wanted us to have plasma energy, they could just, stop unaliving the people that come up with it.
They have fabulous technology, fabulous transport systems, weapons, communication systems, materials, new forms, all sorts of new forms of energy that have been learned from ETs. ETs who come here they usually, there's ETs here, and they've been here for centuries. So we have evolved this amazing manufacturing system, and sometimes they need something that's simple for their ship, and we make those parts for them. And then, and then the government turns around and says, oh, no, we don't know anything about that. I'm like, you liars. Oh, my gosh. So, don't get me started on that. I'm like, I have zero patience.
So what that indicates to me is the reason they want to go into Russia is because they want to have all that energy from that fighting and from those they want that negative energy.
Well, that's the group of people in the split that are really low consciousness people. That's all they see. They don't realize that there's a whole group here, the breakaways, that have been, trotting around the solar system for decades. That's just, there's some people, they want power. And they will grab onto whatever system, whatever institution, whatever tool they think they can use to get power. And it doesn't really get them anywhere. It does get them some power quite often. But when you have a hierarchical power structure, there's only one or two guys up at the top. It's not equitable. It's not spread. And everybody below is disempowered. And that is just a huge challenge when you want the whole civilization to evolve.
So how has it worked on other planets that have been in this situation to get through this last little push, which I feel like we're just, they're not going to win. I mean, people are catching on to their nonsense,
Right.
They're not going to win. It's almost like we're just at the last little bit.
I know, we are. And there's in other places, so like, let's just say that some people that I have been in communication with, they have learned from trying to help other civilizations on other planets what works and what doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And they have tried to implement something here this time that was just magnificent, I think. And Dolores Cannon really laid out some of that, saying there's 3 waves of volunteers that came here. First wave, second wave, and third wave, each one holding space, just naturally understanding something that goes way beyond I'm going to call it, way beyond the parochial attitudes and ideas that a lot of people in power have, because all they see is power. That's all they're looking at. They don't really understand consciousness. They don't think about anybody else but themselves. And when you get a couple of generations of people that they're not retarded, their development has been arrested, but they have personality disorders, all kinds of nutritional problems that create a ton of mental and emotional disturbances in the individual. And that, when you have a plan that attacks from every angle, which, I wrote about, I outlined the 16-year plan, and it, somebody from higher up read it and said, how did you learn all that? And I'm like, it's obvious. You can see it, but I actually had to study that before I came here, because that is how takeovers are typically managed. Okay. And this one's was proceeding like clockwork until Trump got elected in 2016. And that really threw a wrench in their plan. And we did some backsliding when Biden was in as president. And now I see just the first tiniest little threads of, is that the beginning of the end that I'm seeing there? Is that thread where is that going? And I don't even want to say anything about it, but I can see some things unfolding that I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. So a lot of people holding a consciousness of love, a lot of people that are in power nowadays, they're the 50 and 60-year-olds that were raised by a lot of the hippies. And a lot of those hippies or early, the first wave of people, they had very specific ideas about love, about natural living, of all kinds of stuff. Return to the land. They weren't practical at all, because you can't just drop out. It doesn't work. You have to integrate and revise and become sustainable in a whole different kind of way, in an integrated way. So I think I see the first signs of, there might be a war, but it's not gonna get what the warriors hope they're gonna get. And then when all the warriors are gone, the people that are left are going to say, whoa, we need to do something different. We need to be thinking different, feeling differently, going in another direction. And I see that coming. It's like, oh. So, keep the faith, and be ready to walk away or turn your back for a few days if there's a call to do that. So far, there's no call.
I think that we should create the call.
Well, we could, but it has to be pretty much a natural thing. And I keep seeing that one of those young things, those 30-somethings, is going to create the call.
Okay.
Because they just are done, like you are. I'm done.
I'm done. I can't even engage. So let's talk about, and this is something that's so hard for some of us, not you, because you have a different perspective of the world.
Okay.
Than someone like me and probably most of society. So let's talk about the concept of splitting. And I see that there are people who still really want to play in that power game, or that we're going to win game, or that whatever that game is, they're still just digging it, and it just scratching an itch for them. So that tells me that on some level, well, spiritually, they want to keep working in that energy that frequency. They're not done with it yet.
They're still hanging on to their illusions that they need this outer power to be something or somebody.
Well, and it could be it could be an illusion. It could be a manifestation of a lack of self-worth.
It is. They don't have enough of themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the illusion, is that if they had all that external power, they would feel different, but that doesn't work that way.
And it's that whole transactional thing.
Yeah.
You know, everything is transactional. I'll give you this, you give me that. And I'm going to give you a little bit less, and you're going to give me a little more. I mean, it's just a ridiculous game in order to feel, I don't know, I guess it's filling up something, filling a space. But what about the concept of, you have talked about in some of your videos, the new earth is forming. It's coming together. So what's the address? How do I get there?
It is what is the solar system called? It's called the SOL solar system, and it's on planet Earth. So the split is a split in awareness and consciousness and goals. That's the major split, and it's driven by the changes in consciousness. People that are fed up with the lies, people that have been hurt, and they have been not just hurt but humbled to some extent, and are seeing the value of that humility, how much freer they are if they're not driving and pushing and stabbing and digging and all that. So we have to be willing to hold the space for some more of those people that are over in the, I'm going to call it the old paradigm, to move over at the last minute, but it's going to be right here on this planet. And we have change happens all the time. I can see some of the changes that are unfolding now. Some of them are really going to result in wonderful things. But I'm looking at it and thinking that first there's a split between the old world and the new, and then there's another split that has to do with higher consciousness, period. There's no other way to describe it. So, yeah.
So what happens to those who don't raise their consciousness?
Oh, Natalie, that's a good question. They will probably find that all of their options shrink away to nothing. They have no hope of being able to live in a world that they always lived in and they were comfortable in. Some of them, a lot of people die, go to the other side, because so many of those people really are getting, some of them have been hurt by the jab, okay? Almost all of them have been hurt by the food system and the education system. And that, there's no way around that except to change your diet. If you change your diet, you're going to change your consciousness. And that is, I can't emphasize that enough. When certain minerals are missing, then you are missing certain capacities of consciousness. When certain microbes are missing in the gut, then you are missing a whole bunch of attitudes, good attitudes, we'll say, resilience, flexibility, insight, intuition. All those things go by the wayside when the gut is highly disturbed. And if you've been living on processed foods, then you have a disturbed gut. And what happens is that the lining of the gut should be thick and full of mucus, And when you start eating processed foods, it breaks down that mucus lining. That's the layer. That mucus lining holds all of your probiotics and all of your immune system because of those probiotics and 9/10 of your consciousness. You will end up depressed or having some kind of, mental or emotional disorder, and you won't be able to beat it. No drugs are going to fix it. So you end up in this place where, if nobody ever says you need to get better nutrition rules the brain and consciousness, then they're going to go down and they're going to hurt. And that's going to be hard. I find that very hard to watch. It's like, oh, it's not necessary. And it's not. So, those people whose consciousness doesn't expand, or they aren't at least willing to dabble, at least be a little bit flexible, at least explore, try stuff on. If it doesn't fit, take that hat off and try on a different kind of consciousness. Consciousness is a hat. And keep on fiddling until something says, oh, this, I really like this. This is how I want to be. And that changes everything. And sometimes it's just you're missing B vitamins, or you're missing flavonoids, or you're missing zinc, or calcium, or magnesium. Magnesium we have a magnesium epidemic, deficiency of magnesium epidemic happening. And without magnesium, you are crabby and non-sociable, and you don't want to be touched, and you don't want to engage. So we have been deliberately not fed correctly. And what do they call that, the food pyramid of 30 years ago, whenever they set that sucker up, they made sure that they took out the things that were absolutely the most critical for the brain and the function of consciousness. So that's and that was fat. Your brain is made of fat. It is 65 to 70% fat, and it needs fat in order to function. And it has to be saturated fat. Actually, you need 3 different kinds of fat. When they started cutting out good fats and putting in seed oils, it was like, oh, heart disease went up, depression went up, suicide went up, cancer skyrocketed, all kinds of things went wrong. IBD, Crohn's disease, all of those things just are off the charts. And we have to do something about the food. So I can't emphasize that enough.
Can you address the GMOs as well?
Oh, God, yes. So when you want to be able to spray a field, so let me back up even a step. Okay, in the old days, you planted a field of corn. You had a tractor whose wheels were set to exactly match the spaces in that corn, so you could drive down the field pulling a disc or pulling a cultivator that was also matched to the exact width of those rows. And farmers spent a lot of time sitting on the tractor and cultivating, trying to keep weeds down, etc. Hours. When you have a big field, you're getting some sun. Okay. So then along comes Monsanto. Oh, look, we can genetically modify these foods so that we can just spray them. And the farmer just one spray and all the weeds die. But we need to modify the genetics of that plant. So what they did in many cases was to fiddle with the genes in the plant and disturb the nutritional generating capacities of that plant. That was on one side. And then, because plants are or sprays, whether you're talking about herbicides, fungicides, whatever, they're incredibly poisonous and very volatile. And so they added a whole bunch of heavy metals to those formulas to keep those, the herbicides from just evaporating away before it got on the field. So now we have all these heavy metals being sprayed with the herbicide and the fungicide on the field. And so now we have two or three levels of problem. First of all, the genetics are different. Plants they struggle to produce their fruit. Everything is fruit to a farmer, whether it's a grain or something else. So the plants struggle. They're poisoned, and so they need much longer to ripen. Sometimes as much as a month, and that is critical when you're a farmer. If you get into the rainy season and you can't get in the field because it's too wet, you lose the crop. So then we have the poisonous aspect being passed to people. The plant has picked up the poison. It's in the plant and puts it in the fruit. And then we have the heavy metals, and the heavy metals get picked up because that's what plants do. They send out feeder roots. They dissolve a little bit of a metal and suck it up through that root into the plant and use that heavy metal to build structure. Well, those heavy metals have different frequency signatures. And we eat the fruit and we get those same different frequency signatures. So that's like the third level of problem. And then if you have glyphosate, for example, which is sprayed, what does glyphosate do? It prevents the uptake of certain minerals in the plant. So the plant dies. It can't build itself out. Well, that capacity to interfere with the uptake of minerals gets passed to the human gastrointestinal system, and now all of a sudden whatever you're eating is not being absorbed. You're not able to uptake your calcium, your magnesium, your iron. You've got the heavy metals in your system that are destroying the probiotics and other bacteria in the gut. You've got the poisonous effect of the herbicide, the fungicide, or the pesticide, and you end up with a disaster in terms of this whole scenario. And people don't understand that it isn't just the modifying of the genes that interferes with the nutritional content. It's this whole other thing that goes with it. And it's been a disaster for people everywhere.
Okay, let me ask you this. You had mentioned that the civilization or the collective that is trying to take over Earth are brilliant geneticists.
Yep.
Would they have anything to do with this whole process? Because that sounds like a pretty complicated process with a real trickle down bad effect for the human body. And that makes me wonder, were they involved in that?
They have been involved to some extent, but GMO is something that occurs naturally. It can happen through pollen and hybridization types of efforts, but you can also plant two kinds of plants right next to one another so their roots intermingle, and they will share different genetics. They will share different tactics and different information. They will uptake different things because plant roots here will have a frequency around them that modifies these guys over here so that they uptake differently or they end up shaping differently. So GMO is not really, it's really not the GMO that's the culprit here. That's just one of the things that they have used to be able to spray in order to cut the amount of work you have to do in the field to get a crop. So one spray, you're done for the whole summer. All you do is sit back and wait for stuff to grow. And the weeds come up and die. They can't uptake their minerals. The plant, however, does not take up as many minerals as it should, even though their genetics have been modified. They end up with less. And so some foods today have almost nothing in them in terms of nutrition. Oranges have been tested. They didn't have 1 drop of vitamin C. So, yeah, we have, and we eat processed foods. It's not even real. So that's a big problem right there. So we end up in a situation where our lack of education around how does the body work and what makes it healthy, that we're the losers because of that. We don't know. And it's really tragic. And what is really amazing is when you stop eating processed foods and you start eating organic foods, and people say, I can't afford organic. I say to them, oh, yes, you can. Just quit buying all that other junk and just get, real food. Then they're like, oh, but. So, the magic that is possible, that is made possible by plants, is stunning. And when you start eating foods that are real and that are healthy, especially foods, if there's anything you can grow yourself, those foods will attune themselves to your frequency. They know that their purpose is to correct the frequency in humans, and they start shifting their own genetics to shift yours to perfection. And that relationship with plants has gone out the window 100 years ago.
Well, intentionally.
Yeah. Yeah. So we don't have a whole lot. I mean, the fact that as many people have waked up as have waked up, and some of it was just, through the shot and a really hard awakening, really difficult. That all of that is pushing us toward becoming really present in our lives, present to what's happening at all the levels. And I think that is the great value. We can cry and moan about what we've had to go through, but when you've no awareness is for free. People often say, well, you cheated, you had Kundalini. I'm like, oh, okay. I wouldn't call that cheating. I would call that I barely survived. I barely made it through that process, and the re-education that was occurring at every level. It was like drinking from a fire hose. And that, took a long time. But once you've had that awakening and you begin to put pieces together, things just get better and better and better. And there's just, I don't see any reason to feel like we can't turn around. We can.
Well,
it does take a little bit of time.
And I don't think there's any avoiding it at this juncture. People are just, the nest has been stirred up,
It has.
are waking up. I want to talk about a spiritual level for how we make a decision to come to Earth. And what I'm wondering is if you're, if you're deciding what you're going to do next, where are you going to go next?
Right.
And you really want to experience some gritty frequencies, some very tough frequencies. Earth is where you come.
That's true.
So, you had said in a video, not with you and I, but someone else, and you said, this is a tough reality, really tough reality.
It is.
And I think that is this one of the few places available for those really low frequencies, really gritty. And when I say gritty, I'm talking about traumatizing, scary, heartbreaking, all the really tough stuff that goes on here.
Yeah, it is. It's a tough place. And I think in my experience, I haven't been everywhere in the cosmos, but I've been a few places. And whatever the solar system is, whatever star system, if it has planets around it, then there's going to be people. They're usually in the planet, not on the planet, but there's always a place that is on. If there's like the reality of, or the weather or the landscape and geography of that place is the least bit compatible with human life or even animal life or even bug life, then there's going to be people, animals, and bugs. Okay. And there'll be, we don't understand the nature of reality. This is just
We don't.
Many realities, other dimensions exist. And so when you insert yourself in a system, when you come to be born into a system, the idea that you have is you're going to move up through all of the dimensions of that system. And so this is kind of the low level of, a good starting point. But you can't get into those higher levels with the kinds of attitudes or mental, emotional disturbances or need for vengeance or feeling like a victim or any of that kind of stuff. You can't, because, and you wouldn't want to be, I should add, because those other dimensions are much less dense. So because everything here is so thick and heavy and dense, if you said you wanted your chair to move to the other side of the living room, it probably isn't going anywhere. But if you're in another dimension, you move stuff around. You have to be in full control of your consciousness and your feeling state and your thinking at all times, because what you think happens, and you end up scaring the bejabbers out of yourself, like and you end up back here. So a lot of people who dream explore and experiment in higher dimensions, and then when they get someplace where the whole reality is reflecting who they are terrified and they wake up back here. So the practice, if you will, is kind of scary, and you have to have some real self-control, some real self-discipline. You have to be in this place of utter peace, quiet, calm. You're just the observer. I remember when Don Juan was saying you have to sit on your left shoulder at all times and just watch what's happening. Don't engage, just watch, and be aware that every minute that you're watching, that you're observing, could be your last minute. Are you spending that last minute the way you would love to spend it? And I found that so disturbing. It's like, that's just so down. That's so depressing. But he was so right. So yeah.
I noticed that, when I look back at the energy from when I was, let's say, 12 or 13 to the energy now, it's different.
Oh, yeah.
It's very different. And one thing I'm noticing, and let me know, you guys watching, if you're seeing or feeling or experiencing the same thing, is things manifest pretty doggone quickly.
That's right. We're moving into a hybrid area. Those who are expanding consciousness are moving to the highest levels of 3D. And that's kind of starts to overlap 4D, where it's much less dense. And like things respond.
I can just change my mind about a situation,
Yeah,
and then boom, the circumstances around it
I know.
change in the direction and in unison. It's weird.
Oh, no, that's natural. It's not
But
weird.
see, that's the thing that you don't get because you have a different framework. For someone
Oh,
who does not have that framework that you have,
oh, yeah, that's
that is
probably true.
completely different than what I was taught and what my belief system was my life.
Okay,
Everything you have to work hard for.
you do?
That's what I
Oh,
believe.
yeah, okay.
I'm a boomer. You got to work hard.
Yeah,
Life's not a picnic. You got to work, and which is exactly the opposite of what
yeah,
I'm seeing unfold now.
that's wonderful.
Well,
Congratulations.
well, thank you, but it's more like, and I had this epiphany, and I bet you people watching have had the same thing in some version. Penny, I was just slapped in the face with this thought of reality is nothing like I thought it was.
Oh,
The reality I live in is completely different than what I was taught and grew up thinking.
I know.
The layers are different. The
Yeah.
way things unfold it's completely different. And I still haven't settled on what that complete story is of what actual reality is, but I know it's very different. Am I
Yeah.
making sense here?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really hard to, yeah, you have to experience the fluidity, the dynamic nature. You know, I move from one dimension to another or from one reality system to another in a very easy manner.
Effortlessly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And I
right.
feel like here on earth, when I compare my reality to what I can imagine your reality is, which
Okay.
is which is very ethereal and slippery, and it morphs
Okay.
easily from one thing to the next. I perceive Earth to be very rigid and very limited in movement.
Yeah, it is pretty stiff. It's pretty locked in a lot of different ways. Unfortunately, it's the nature of what we have built. What we've built reflects how we are and what we think. And
Okay, so that right there, that's where I have a problem.
oh, why?
I'm little Miss Contrarian today
Okay.
because I don't feel like we built it. I feel like we have been mind controlled
Yeah, to
into
some extent.
playing in a very limited game.
Right.
On our own, humans, my opinion is that we are extraordinary,
We
but
are.
we have been so literally MK Ultra our entire lives that when you say we built it, no, we were puppeted into marching along on a script to end us.
Okay. Uh,
Is that where am I wrong in that? Or how does
you're
that
not wrong, but there's an additional viewpoint that I think should be you need to see what you've been puppeted into in
yes.
order to get beyond that. And
And
that's,
that's the game.
okay. Well, that's where I keep teaching. It's like, okay, we're going to wake up some people here. Because it's vastly different than what you think. I just was talking to somebody yesterday that was not happy with life, wanting to leave here and afraid of what what she might run into if she left, etc. And afraid of a lot of different things. But, I'm explaining this, that, and I'm afterwards I thought, I hope she got the message, which is that there's more of the same, but it's very different. I know that sounds contradictory. When you move to the next world, it's not as thick and dense and heavy and rigid as this one, which is wonderful because healing happens very quickly. And we go to places that match the mindset we had
when we were here.
Yeah, right. And I don't mean that let's say you have dementia and you leave, you're going to match the mindset that you had in your prime. Okay, pretty much. Everybody reverts to their prime. And that that is what you have in the next world. It's a composite world just like this one. Everybody contributing. It's a little bit chaotic, but it works. It works, and it works a little more beautifully over there. But that's not the only reality either. There's all kinds of places you can go. And that, I can emphasize how different some of those places are. And I have worked with people who've gone to the other side for years. And you get an offer, once you get over there, you have to heal, and then you get you'll get a list of, okay, here's some things that we need done. We want you to contribute. And so you pick something, and you can pick something, and one of those things is always going to be something that will improve your consciousness, expand your consciousness, or that you'll be able to do something you've always wanted to do. So, one of the people that I've worked with her for a long time, she was a dancer and really good dancer. And she got cancer in her feet and she died. And, in the run up to getting ready to go, it was like, what have you always dreamed of? And she said, I would love to work with children. I want to work with children. I want to teach them to dance. I want to teach them to laugh. And that's what she ended up doing on the other side. Different people set up different lives in the same way that they do here. But you can't fool yourself over there. That doesn't work. So, yeah, it's that's a whole topic. We should probably talk about what's on the other side next time. But that whole thing of being puppeted into creating is so that you can see what you're capable of and then say, heck no, I can do better than this. I think, I feel, I see. And that has, that's something that people are just not, they don't give themselves permission to do here. So we go slow. We're very slow here to evolve.
But I also heard that you get a lot of street cred on the other side for coming to Earth.
Well, you do. Because there's people there from other places, but
because it's tough here. You gotta.
Yeah, it is tough here. But nobody's going to be patient if you have poor me attitude. Or, people don't automatically become very loving. They still can be pretty snippy or get irritated with one another, but it's much less than here. But even so, you are going to be responsible for looking into the self and working on that self. And here there's almost like a taboo against that kind of thing. It's like, oh, he went to therapy. It didn't help him at all. Mostly because, maybe he only went to please somebody else, or he didn't have the right therapist. or part of him believed that, I'm going to run my own life and I'm not going to listen to the therapist, or, whatever. People have all kinds of worries about how they will be seen if they go to see a therapist. So it's like, don't be worried about that.
But okay, so another example in my mind of how we are bred from, our first breath, first step, to feel bad about ourselves.
Absolutely.
To have low self-esteem, to feel embarrassed about what we want, instead of feeling so centered and so solid and so excited about what, we can create and build. That's completely missing from this reality system. I mean, you literally have to pull it up from inside yourself and create it in defiance of the social norm.
That's true. And that, I'm going to say, is absolutely necessary, because nobody can do your perception for you. Nobody can feel your feelings for you. Nobody can have your attitude for you. You have to do and feel and hold and shift all of that all by yourself.
Yes.
And when you get to the point that you can do that, you have earned some real, I'll call it respect, for lack of, you've earned a frequency that opens doors for you, is what it amounts to. And that, I think, is very important.
And this is the lessons you learn in this environment,
yes,
are extraordinary.
Yeah, they are.
If you learn them, if you keep swirling around in the gunk. But it's like, talk about, I mean, look at all the, the nonsense going on, being, the psyops going on. What does that do? It really hones your intuition. What's my intuition about this situation? It's a total, theater.
Yeah.
So with, our intuition, our sense of self, our sense of creating the world, creating the frequencies. What do I want to feel today? There's so much that this environment really, really hones in you when you're paying attention.
Well, yeah. I mean, you have to be willing to take that first risk and step outside the thinking box. If you don't have at least a little touch of adventure, a little enough anger to say, I'm not doing that anymore, I'm not believing that anymore. You have to have something that pushes you. And of course, then there's always a backlash. Oh, I feel guilty. Oh, I shouldn't have watched that. I shouldn't have read that. I shouldn't have done that. No. That, don't be thinking that way. The thing to ask is, what did I learn from that? How has that little experience, dipping my toe in that thinking or that kind of company or whatever, how has that shifted who I am inside? Because everything changes us, and we fight tooth and nail to keep ourselves rigid and in this little bitty box. And we need to stop doing that and to start looking at, we come here to have a core change. Allow the change. What is the change that everybody's headed toward? It's love. You're made of love. There'll be a moment when you recognize yourself as love, and that changes everything. So, and then you're in that love forever. Doesn't matter who comes and goes. Doesn't matter what happens, what, builds up, what falls down. You're in love because you are love. And that is, if we get, I'll say, 500 people out of 8 billion that end up in love in this next year or two, we have made amazing progress. Amazing. Because it only takes a few to shift the whole thing.
Yeah. And there we have it. It's simple, folks.
It is, but you do have to work through the chaos of the change, and you just keep your eye on what you want to be, where you're going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Before we close, I want to do a little commercial for mycocolife.com.
Oh, okay.
I just, you guys, if you haven't checked it out, mycocolife, MYCOCO life.com. It's an online platform that Penny has. I just joined, and I guess I'm at the level I get to have a sleepover at Penny's every month or something.
Oh.
It's wonderful. I'm late to the game. I know a lot of you probably are already there. If you're not there, check it out. It's wonderful. It's like this little hub of people who are having these kinds of conversations. It's just really content rich. So if you are sleeping on it like I was, go on over there and check it out.
Okay. Thank you. And yeah, everybody, you're welcome.
Mary Jo, can you put that in the chat, the link there, so that everyone can click over really easily, or put it up on the screen? Because I know it's just an unusual string of words. So
yeah. My community of consciousness online life.com.
There you go. Thanks.
Yeah.
And Mary Jo's over there too, working really hard, keeping everybody happy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, she's great. Gosh.
Well, Penny, how do we get, I want somebody to start the whole thing where we just sit down for a week or 10 days and we don't do nothing. Except hang out with each other and have barbecues in our backyards.
Oh, wouldn't that be wonderful?
Wouldn't that be fun?
I got my fire pit ready.
It would be like the best block party ever, because it'd be nationwide.
There you go. I have a couple times thought if we don't get a budget, the government is going to shut down. And what I'm going to point out to people is, look, they can all sit down. When's our turn? And just keep planting that seed. So maybe it'll happen. Okay. Maybe.
All right. I'll envision it.
Yeah.
Penny.
Okay. You're welcome. Thank you to everybody out there. I never get a chance to look at the comments, which I love, and they disappear afterwards. So,
oh, you can pull them up again. It just sometimes takes a while to populate them.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so we'll say goodbye for this week, this month. Take care of yourself, everybody.
Yeah, take care of yourself, and think about sitting down for a week or 10 days. I think it could possibly be one of the most memorable vacations we'll all have for our entire lives.
Oh, it would be.
It would be. So let's do it.
Yeah. We're having a little Christmas vacation.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'll